So, hello everyone, all 250 odd of you. I'm assuming I'm assuming whatever I say, they'll hear, right?
Yes,
Yes.
My language.
Everybody's saying hi.
We're actually so glad of having you back. Not sure if you remember the first time you were.
So yeah. So I was thinking about that. I remember getting the email invite, and it said something about coming to this charity event, and I was so I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, do I have to go somewhere? Do I have to put on a black suit and tie? Or But of course, we're all familiar with all this with video conferencing stuff now. So and it was all fine. Yeah, I can remember doing lots of silly voices and people getting excited.
Yeah, we made it as straightforward as possible. Just, show up in your pajamas, whatever you want. It's all chill.
Yeah, there's a whole voiceover book called that, Going to Work in Your Pajamas. PJs, maybe.
Ooh, I need to read that.
I did not write it. I absolved myself of any responsibility. So I'm in the UK. This is my sister's house.
Oh, okay. Got a lot of CDs back there.
Yeah, she's old. I don't know. That's saying something, but I can also say because she's not here, so she doesn't know I've said that, and the probability of her seeing it is pretty small.
She's not a big Payday fan.
I'm not sure she knows. No, she knows what a console is. I imagine. Not that. Well, let's not go there with Payday, shall we?
Are you much of a gamer yourself? Like, do you play games? Have you played Payday?
I have played Payday a couple of times, but look at the grey hair, and my reactions are not what they used to be. So games that happen in real time are challenging for me. Let's just say that. So
I see.
yeah, I have played a bit of Payday, but you don't want me on your team, I can tell you. Stand in a corner, waiting for people to come help me stand up because I need a medic bag.
Yeah, in all fairness, it can be a really overwhelming game, so I get it. It's pretty crazy.
And it's not just Payday. If you parachuted me into any game that required me to run around in real time, it'd be rubbish. So, so I played a bit of Lara Croft back in the day, like.
Okay.
So I think that was the first game that I might have played all the way through to the end.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, I don't even remember. It wasn't the first one. It was one of like the Lara Croft 2 or 3 or something. But Lara. And this little pixel game called The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which came out maybe a year and a half ago. And I had a couple of voices in it, and I wanted to go and see what it was like. And it's like a 2D pixel game, point and click adventure. Some of the writing was hilarious, and so I wanted to do that, and I played that all the way through to the end.
Do you think that if you had the opportunity, you would be in more indie stuff like that?
The opportunity, not for this, but I was looking up the numbers the other day. I've recorded for over 120 games in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Something over 200 characters in those 120 odd games, and over 250 recording sessions, which means if I count it up over 5 years, that's almost just about one every I'm recording for a video game or other. I've got one on my workflow I can't do it now because I'm at a studio, but I fly home on Thursday, the audio back by the end of September. So Friday, I've got a couple hours to do on Friday for a video game called Flawless Abbey. It's going to be a puzzle game. It looks brilliant. The reason I auditioned for it was because it looks so pretty. Go look on Steam.
That is honestly a major feat to have that big of a number behind you like that.
I'm busy. I work. This is my job. It's not like I've got, I go and work at the local supermarket for 8 hours and come home and do, faff around in the studio afterwards. This is if I don't book work, I don't put food on the table. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all. Video games is not all I do. I mean, commercials and radio and audio dramas and books and corporate stuff and all sorts. If there's anyone in the UK watching, there's an advert for the Coventry Building Society knocking about over the next 3 months, and that's me.
Oh, okay.
You'll be sent to Coventry. He's like he's a not a very nice corporate fat cat kind of character.
Do you
yeah.
think you're geared towards any certain type of media more? Like, do you enjoy doing commercials more or games, or do you not really have a preference? Or
No, again, I'm a gun for hire. I have a personal preference. Games is my thing. I love performing in video games. I obviously must be okay at it. I guess what I have to say is that things like commercials tend to pay more than video games do. So that's the money game right there. And I've started getting involved in a bit of promo and trailer work for streaming services, and not that I've booked any movies yet, but I'm starting to see auditions for them. So that could be interesting. Could be going to a cinema and it'll be watch this movie next week only in cinemas or something like that.
hell yeah.
So that's coming. If I'm getting the audition, eventually I'll book something. So that'll happen.
In comparison, like, to your other stuff, do you think that Locke has been like one of the most memorable things for you, or where would you put the?
Yeah, he's right at the top of the tree. I mean, without there are so many stories. But so I've been playing Locke on and off for eight years. So it's impossible. And given that I've been a professional voice actor for 9 and a bit years, he's been a part of my voiceover life for almost my entire career as a voice actor. So he's central to who I am really as a voice actor. And there's no accident that when you book a role which is recognizable, you get a named character like Locke, and you're able to tell other game studios that you've done work like that, it makes you somehow more trustworthy to them.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was the first thing I did with you, the Kraken. That's why the Twitter account, X account. That's why @Locke Payday exists, is because of that charity stream. It wouldn't exist without it. So there was another game. There's a Warhammer game called Inquisitor Martyr that I did 5 or 6 years ago, and I'd done 2 rounds of auditions for it. And the third round of auditions, so they said to me, it's down to you and another guy, which I kind of don't really want to hear, because if you don't get the role, the other guy got it. But I got cast in it. But, I can't say this is true, but you've got to know that it has some impact. But at the time, the @Locke Payday Twitter account probably had like 8,000 followers or something. So I'm able to say to people, I am followed on Twitter by, at that time, 8,000 odd people who play video games. Mostly Payday do too, but they play video games. So if you hire me for your game, all those players will get to hear about the games that I'm in, and some of them might buy your game. So I shamelessly use that, and now we've just gone through. Thank you, everybody. 14,000 followers, which is surreal.
That's awesome.
Just astonishing. But it makes a difference. So having a role like Locke early on in my career has most definitely helped. Thank you, Starbreeze. That answer.
I don't know if you remember the Locke for show hashtag that we used on Twitter back in the day. No,
I don't.
it was hilarious.
Locke for sure.
Yeah. So everybody started tweeting Locke for show, trying to get
Yeah.
more of Locke in Payday.
Yeah.
It was so
And
much fun.
didn't it? Because another, I don't know, year or so after the charity stream, Locke became the main operator when Bane went. So it's all down to you guys. Thank you.
How do you feel that Locke managed to like steal Bane's spotlight almost, even though Bane has been like the fan favorite for so long?
I don't see that there needs to be a conflict between. I mean, if you know, like, think about the storyline. Locke is Bane's friend, and Locke's there at the funeral. Saying goodbye. And the little salute to him is was something that we talked about quite a lot on set. So I don't think that there has to be, in the canon, there doesn't have to be any kind of conflict. Locke is sad that Bane has gone, but carry on. And so I suppose, if you originally Locke was something of an antagonist, and as his story developed, the gang become, my boys. The gang means a lot to him, and one of the things I think we came to in terms of like backstory, I think that Locke was working for Murky Water under some kind of duress. Is what goes on in my mind, and so being brought in and through the back door into the gang, he's grateful for that, I think, and he's very loyal to the Payday gang.
Yeah, getting to see you in live action, getting to record, being at his grave and doing the offshore Payday and everything, that was really neat.
Absolutely, it was really neat. It was also terrifying. You got to remember, so I'm a voice actor. I don't do much. I do a little bit on screen now, but I hadn't done anything on screen at that point. I wasn't an on-camera actor, and there I am on a set on a rock with Mira Furlan, who's a super, bless her, and all these other guys who've done all this work, Damien and Josh and Eric and all those guys, and Ilya, who's the Eastern European Russian bad guy in every movie you ever saw. I mean, it's so I'm like terrified. I don't want to be the guy that doesn't know anything. So I went at the time when they told me about it, that they wanted to do it. I went to a local acting school for 6 weeks, once a week for 6 weeks, just to get a feel for what it was like to be on set, to know when a director says certain things, that's what he means. So I had to put some work in to make that happen. But it was great fun, and it is that, I think it is that live action set camaraderie that as actors brings us together.
You guys have anything to add to that? I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any fun stories that you can talk about during your time of recording. And
on the set.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this isn't the first time I've told this story, but so in the if you imagine in the funeral scene, we're in a tropical rainforest and it is raining. Everyone has an umbrella except me. And I know it's a very short piece, but these things are not filmed in one take.
Yeah.
So I'm there, stood at the end of the grave. They turn on the tap. There's all these big tropical rain things hidden up in the trees. So it wasn't actually raining. There was a huge water tanker, and they turn the tap on, soaked to the skin on take one, because I got no protection. You think I got a woolly hat on, right? You wear a woolly hat in the rain, it gets wet and heavy. So then they call cut, and I come off the set, and 3 people descend upon me with towels. Beret comes off, and there's like green dye around here, around my forehead. So if you like, that was my first experience of on-set life was being drowned almost constantly for a day, and being soaked to the skin. Now roll on. Now we're down at the beach, and so I had the worst of that day, really, in terms of comfort. Roll on to the beach day. Where's everybody else? They got shorts and shirts and a sun canopy, and they're all there having fun. Where am I? Out on the rock. Oh, wearing a woolly hat again. So I'm under the blazing Mediterranean sun. It wasn't filmed in Mexico. They provided a young lady with an umbrella. So between takes, she ran out and held the umbrella over me, which was lovely. So, so Locke got the rough end of that particular filming set. So I got all the rain and all the sun. And at the end of it, the shoot, because they were all in their swim trunks, and they said, cut, print, we're done. They all swam off into the sea, and I'm in all my combat boots. So, but what a week! It took us a week to film those 2 scenes.
Wow, a whole week.
Yeah. You couldn't imagine the complexity involved in these things. There were maybe 6 actors on set, maybe eventually across the whole thing, plus half a dozen extras, the dancing ladies, and then so that's 10 or 12 people on screen at any one, through the course of it, and there's probably double that people behind the scenes, and they're filming something up on the rock, and they've got to move cameras, and it's wasn't that easy to get up onto the rock, and they got to have a stunt guy with the golf ball that exploded. They've got to take care of that, and then the fight with Mira, the stunt guy, they've got to coordinate all of that. That took that one little snippet with the briefcase, and the one we'd share one line was that the script didn't really. That was all ad-libbed pretty much, which I don't think all of it made it into the film. But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it. So that took, I don't know, an hour and a half just for that one sort of, 5-second clip.
On the topic of ad-libbing and improvising and stuff, did they let you do that a decent amount, and the live action, or even just voicing him?
I think in the live action there was more than typically in a heist recording. If you imagine in a heist recording, a lot of it is procedural. It's a lot of go and attach the rope, go and find the code, go and find the briefcase, go and find the key card, all that. Oh no, it's an ARFID block again, all that kind of thing. So there's not much room for improvisation, because in that sense there's not a lot of storytelling. What happened more, as I got to know the writers, the loadout screens where you're telling much more of a story, we would have a bit of a laugh around that, and jokes would happen, and then in a subsequent heist there'd be something in the loadout screen, like an Easter egg for us that we know about. It's written something very specific that relates to something that we talked about previously. So there was a lot more of that going on, in terms of relationship-wise. And then there are some, I think as a character, Locke has certain idiosyncrasies, and you can't always write those. They have to come out when it feels natural. The for sures are not in the script, and he hardly ever says it. I think maybe, again, if you want a reason for that, I think in the early days he was more aggressive, he was more uncertain of his position, perhaps. He was more of a bully, And for sure, he was almost to himself. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And Lazy doesn't need it so much. So.
Yeah, I can tell that you personally had a lot of fun with Locke. I think everyone can, and that's why everyone loves him so much, is because I don't know, you're just clearly having a big ball behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as it's become, I can't say collaborative really, because I'm in South Carolina normally, and the team are in Stockholm, and I receive a script. But that when we gather like this on a sort of a Zoom call or a Google Meet call or something, and you're working with the same people regularly, you develop a friendship, and that's been I think core for me to be able to develop, to have that longevity in a game, to develop a what feels very natural. When I receive a script, I don't have to work very hard to find myself back in Locke's head.
Taking advantage of this quick segue, and yeah, I wrote some of the questions, and one of the questions earlier about stealing the spotlight. It wasn't meant as a negative thing. It was just in the sense of
No, and I didn't
everyone.
take that. Yeah, I didn't.
No, yeah, like the community just embraced you like so much, and they really enjoy Locke as a character, to the point that there's a lot of people that prefer it over Bane, and yeah, that's what I meant most.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll see how young Ice-T does.
Did you have much in-person interaction with Ilya when you recorded those lines with Vlad, or was it all just remote?
There was a lot of talk about us recording those in a session together and recording them together. But logistically, with Stockholm being 6 hours ahead of me and Ilya being 3 hours behind me, and then there's 9. The logistics were, I think, cumbersome. So they typically recorded Ilya first. Now Ilya does ad lib. You give Ilya a line with 10 words in it, and he'll change 9 of them. I mean, he's. I think most of what you hear him say is just him making it. He uses he feels the script is nothing more than a guideline. But so they recorded his lines first. Typically, so those two, like you're thinking about the like across the border, the Mexican heist. I'm imagining, and so they would have his lines recorded, and then they would play me his lines so that I could bounce off his line, not necessarily directly off of him. I think if the three of us, the director and Ilya and me, it might have been difficult for Locke to get a word in edgeways.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the bickering between Locke and Vlad just feels so natural, like the chemistry. Like I'm genuinely surprised you guys were not in the same room.
I think it helps that we had met on set in Barcelona, in Spain, when we were filming the end scene. So I think that helps, because I understood a little bit about Ilya's character, and a little bit about his personality, and I think that helps. And it's not unusual. So maybe it might be useful to understand. So most video games, when you're recording dialogue, most of the time you're not in a session with your scene partner. Most of the time you have your lines. You might have the other lines as well. You not even always have those, but it's uncommon to have the other actor with you. So I guess that's one of the skills that a voice actor needs to develop, is the ability to bounce off dialogue even though you're not hearing a voice. And I guess that's something that I'm okay at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it shows. Like, how do you necessarily like prepare yourself to like immerse yourself in the dialogue when you go to record? Do you have like a special routine or?
Having the script in advance helps, which is again not always the case with video games. Most video game studios are very protective of their storylines, and they don't want any leaks. So it's quite common, and also a lot of the writing happens right up to the last minute. So it's not unusual to get the script an hour before a session. So you'll have a chance to glance over it at most. Starbreeze are very good with me now. They trust me enough that they'll give me a script 2 or 3 days in advance. And again, because a lot of it's procedural, that it's what I read through are the lowdown scripts. Where we're actually telling something of a story, and so for preparation, yeah. And then I'm looking for names of people or places or words that I'm unfamiliar with, and I'll either ask for a pronunciation in advance if I have the time, and I'll certainly practice those. Yu Fu Wong, which on the paper doesn't look anything like that. So preparation-wise, once you've been booked for a character, you might have thought, I will have thought a little bit about the character. I'll have gone back to the audition script. I'll have listened back to my audition. I tried to figure out, and there'll normally be a bit of preamble in a session for a new game, and we'll talk a little bit about the character and what the writer's intentions are, and then we play jazz.
When Locke was originally shown to you, was that sort of the process? Like, did it just, because you mentioned how he just kind of came naturally to you? Did they just show you a picture of this man and you're like, okay, this is what he sounds like?
No, the first audition for Locke said South African mercenary video game, and there were probably 5 or 6 lines. No direction, nothing. No.
Wow.
No. And I don't think I will ever make it publicly audible. I have the original audition for Locke still in my files. I must have been the best of a bad lot, is all I can say. I'm eternally grateful that they thought I was the best of the bad lot or whatever. But and I think in terms of getting what I meant, so I guess once you've played a character consistently over months and years, I could just drop into Locke anytime. It's no problem for me at all. I'll just do that.
Wait, where did Ian go?
Oh no, he went up. I don't know what he's doing. Be very quiet, very suspicious.
Well, yeah, I guess. Do you think you can do the 5 lines for us that was originally asked? I know you're not going to share the first.
I mean, this is like 8 years ago. I mean, come on, guys. Give me a break.
But what were they in the lines?
What I do remember, so they were lines from Beneath the Mountain, I think. They were sample lines from one of the 2 heists, and I think it was Beneath the Mountain. One thing I do remember about the audition, there's a scene in the lift where he says, "Anybody know any good tunes?" And there's silence, and then Locke starts whistling the 1812 overture. Da, 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 da. And I did that. That was all it said was sing a tune in the audition, and that I chose that. I chose the 1812 overture because of the explosion bit of it, and then they used that in the heist. So that was all me.
Okay, so it seems like they.
Don't be sending me voice messages, Red Cobra. I can't listen to them. I've only got this one little machine. Don't be doing that to me.
I know a good one. How physical do you get during these sessions? Like, do you move your arms a lot? You kind of bounce around? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, well, again, this is technique, I guess. So the microphone's kind of here somewhere, needs to pick up your mouth, so you can't be doing this or up and down, because the sound will be different. So there's a technical requirement to keep your head fairly still, but I definitely wave my hands around. In fact, I constructed my booth as 6 feet by 4 feet, so it's a small room inside a room, and I have my my performance. I have the screen for scripts and so on in a corner, so that I have the corner to corner width to spread my arms. Otherwise, I'd be hitting the walls all the time. So yeah, I am quite active, and of course, the more extreme the vocalization needs to be, if you've been shot in a game, and you go "ow," it doesn't feel or sound to the player like you've been shot. And if you go "ah," and you really physically you physically do something as well, excuse me, it comes across more. So absolutely, yeah, world class vomiter I am.
It's good that you allow
So
yourself
there are
for
also
the.
if people are driving, I mean, I have a glass of water anyway, but I will take a sip of water, and actually, so it sounds like me struggling to drink water. Things like that. I have one of these stretchy rubber bands that people do physiotherapy with. I have one of them. So if you're lifting something heavy and you have something to pull on, it makes it more real. So little things like that, little tricks that help.
You got this down, man. You got every little trick in the book.
Well, I've learned from a lot of different people. Still, I'm shamelessly. It's called the voiceover mic heist. If people got good ideas, you do go to a workshop and you learn something that you can use to make your performance better. It was worth going to the workshop. One little thing, and I train constantly.
Is that what you would recommend for people that want to be voice actors? Just get into the workshops, learn the little tricks, and
Absolutely, you need to be an actor, especially if, I think a lot of people coming up, younger folk, have encountered voiceover through video games and through animation, through anime, and that's what they aspire to. And that's you take an acting class, learn to act first, then there's all the little techniques, and then you have to become an audio engineer somewhat. You're running your own business, you've got to learn to market yourself. There's a whole bunch of other things. In a week, I'll probably spend 5 or 6 hours behind a microphone, and the rest of it is doing everything else. So it's not all playing behind the mic. I wish it was all playing behind the microphone, but it's not. But if you're thinking that voice acting is something that you aspire to, that you'd like to have a go at, absolutely take acting classes, take voiceover workshop classes. In November, in LA, there's a conference called, because there's a shameless plug here. There's a conference called Get Your Game On, which is a voiceover conference specifically for actors and voice actors interested in getting into video games. And I spoke last year about some of the stuff that I do, and I'm speaking this year. And all the top casting agents, the top agents, the top talent, they all go. So clearly, I'm biased, but I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's scheduled. You have one general day where you get a little bit of everything, and then if you choose to, there are some people, 3 or 3 I think it is, who run a whole weekend workshop, which you pay extra for. So last year I booked to be with a guy called Tom Keegan, and Tom Keegan was the director on Star Wars Battlegrounds. And what there is to know about motion capture, acting for video games. He knows it all, and he is so insightful. What an amazing man! He changed me as an actor in 2 days. This year, I'm going to work with a lady called Kim Hurden, who casts. She lives in Canada somewhere, and casts for people like Ubisoft are in Canada, so she casts for those people. So these people who are casting, they're the people that know what they want to hear in a session. They know what their clients want. So you need to get in front of those people.
Yeah, connections. Just putting your foot in the door.
Right. And learn from them. Absolutely. I did 2 years ago, maybe. When was COVID? 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I did an online workshop with a guy called Randall Ryan, and this year he cast me. So I don't think I haven't seen it, but you'll probably be familiar with the game Raid: Shadow Legends.
Oh yeah, of course.
So they do loads of content. Plarium make it, and there's a dark elf called Kyle, and they've done an advert for something that's due, and I could be out somewhere for all I know. So I'm the voice of Kyle in this advert, which Randall cast me for, which is fantastic. Thank you, Randall, if you're listening.
You have any spicy upcoming projects that you could talk about that you have coming up?
I have one that I absolutely, actually, I have two that I absolutely cannot talk about. It's difficult.
Yeah, NDA and such.
Yeah, I have. Familiar with the Warhammer universe? Warhammer 40,000?
Yeah.
Vaguely. So there's a whole bunch of Warhammer games there, but there's December. There's a Warhammer game coming out called Rogue Trader, which is a RPG game. It's the player, and then the player has several companions. I'm one of the companions in that, so that's coming out in December.
Hell yeah.
What else? It's hard. I don't. Well, the danger is that I'd say something that I shouldn't.
No, I understand. It's like navigating a minefield.
Yeah, we don't want you to get into any sort of trouble.
No.
There's another game I can do. There's a game called Kristalla with a K, which is sort of they describe it as a Souls-like game RPG, and all the characters are cats, and there's a wise old sort of wizardy type cat called Atreus Stone, and that'll be me when that's coming out next year at some point. But that's in the public domain, and my name has been linked to it, so I can say that.
I hope it's just a cat with the voice of Locke. That'd be great.
I was going to ask what kind of dialect he has.
Well, most of what I do is me. Locke, in that sense, is somewhat unusual that his voice is absolutely not me. Although maybe several years later, maybe he is me. Maybe Locke is being cast in all these games and is doing an RP accent because he's impersonating me now.
Maybe that's the reason why he's missing from Payday 3.
Yeah, that's the official line.
Yeah. I remember in our previous interview that you said that Locke was inspired by a South African friend of yours, or the husband of...
Well, there's two elements to that. So I worked for almost a decade in Holland, and I ran a sales team. And I had two South Africans working for me, a lady, actually three, and a guy. And one of the guys would definitely, there's something of him in Locke for sure. But the other thing is, if we roll back to when I was cast as Locke in 2015, That was so the heist came out around about December, I think. But I was cast in maybe the September, October, a couple of months beforehand. And when I had been cast, I guess one evening that week, we were in the local town and there was a band playing and a green, and you could get a drink from the bar and all the rest of it. And we have some friends who are from South Africa who live nearby, and they were there. And we met them, and I said, "You'll never guess I've just been cast as a South African." And they said, "Do your South African accent. Go on, do it." So I did what I did back then, and they went, "That's rubbish." That's
Yeah,
rubbish,
you're
Ian. Don't do that. So they gave me a couple of little pointers. I was rolling my R's too much. So South Africans don't roll their R's. When you start rolling your R's, you start becoming more Russian. So they gave me a couple of so that I was able to adopt that into Locke. So yeah, and oddly enough, so we got to the 10-year anniversary, and around about that time, I had hurt my back, and I needed therapy, and that's what he does. The South African guy, he's an occupational therapist. So I went to him. And I told him that story, reminded him of that story. He said, "Yeah, I remember that." And I said, "I'm still playing that character 8 years later, and we've just celebrated the 10 years of the game." And he was like, "That's amazing." Small world.
Yeah, I don't know if it was accidental or on purpose, but the fact that Locke is not full South African adds a little mystique into where he is actually from. Like he's hiding something, like everyone in the game.
Maybe, but he's also, if you go back and you read his original backstory, it says he worked for the CIA, he worked for MI6. So he's, as a mercenary, he's clearly, and I don't know that, who knows whether that might be something that, maybe there'll be a spin-off series, Young Locke or something,
I would totally pre-order that right now.
Probably better than Michelle.
Locke's time with the intelligence agencies, but it's not unusual for people to go and live in a different country and to pick up some idiosyncrasies from those countries. I was caught the other day saying trash because I live in America, as opposed to England where we say rubbish.
I like rubbish more.
That's rubbish. I'm throwing this into the rubbish bin. So yeah, there's definitely lots of little inspirations that you pick up, almost by osmosis, by accident.
Was the warming up to the Payday gang like something on your end, or was just over time? Because I've noticed that like you said, Locke is very cold on the beginning, very calculative. He's just there to do his job, but he does seem to, like, I guess, find a new bunch of friends.
Yes.
Since he's been outcast now, because he doesn't have a...
I like to think that. I mean, I don't think that's an official line. I don't know that that's canon. But as an actor, I think it helps to have developed a story in your head to help develop the relationship with the people that you're speaking to or with. And I think that if I dare raise the Alaskan heist, that's the point. That's the focal point, the tipping point where Locke's relationship with the gang changes. He ceases to be an antagonist and starts becoming, a colleague, a collaborator more. I think previous to that, he's kind of forces the gang, doesn't he? I can bring you down with a press of a button. So he's quite antagonistic, but then the story changes, and when Bane gets kidnapped and taken, there's a vacuum, and and Bane asks Locke to fill that vacuum. Bane trusts Locke to take over, and I think that's where that relationship changes.
I know that it's a hot topic, but in the situation of Locke coming back for Payday 3, everyone else in the gang seems to have grown up and changed their personality a little bit. If you could change something about Locke as he's getting older or wiser, what would you possibly bring to the table for Payday 3, I guess?
Oh, that's very hypothetical.
It is.
From what I understand of the story, something's happened and they've lost the money, right? They're
Yes, there was an attack. A lot of people gone missing, and everyone's money is gone. Basically, they start from zero.
So you have to imagine that if that's happened to everybody else, then why would that not have happened to Locke? So I think the starting point for me for that would be I think so there's two elements to it. There would be Locke wanting to help the gang because he's loyal to them. So if there was some way he could help them get back on their feet, I think he would do that. And I don't think there's also a dark side to Locke that we don't see very often, but occasionally he gets quite passionate. There was a bit in the last heist on the oil rig where Locke got quite angry. So there's definitely a dark side to Locke. So you can imagine if someone, here's a guy who has basically managed to achieve everything he ever set out to achieve. He's never really failed. So if someone, and he's a master hacker, all this kind of thing. So if someone has somehow hacked into his account and stolen all his money, I think he'd be pissed.
So you think Locke would be more hands-on?
I don't know.
Do you think he would take a supporting role again? Because as you probably know, we have a new voice in our ears called Shade. Seems to be like an old friend of Bane. So what would you think? Would Locke go and get his hands dirty and get his money back, or
what, as a heister?
Yes, I don't see why not. He has years of military training, and
I mean, technically, I don't see why not. But if he's already older than the gang when we know him in Payday 2, and time has ticked on, he's also older. So would he? He might. He might. But there's a physicality that we'd have to maybe consider. How old is Locke now? And does he want to be running around? Does he want that, or will he use his other skills to gain revenge, sweet revenge? I could see that, but I could also see the other side of it. Where maybe he's not stupid. Maybe he didn't lose all his money because he was more clever than that, but that he sees that the gang is in difficulty and wants to help them. So I see both sides of that as being possible.
yeah, because Payday has never been too keen on realism. We had Jiro, which was one of our oldest heisters. It was a very elderly Japanese man, and yeah, I don't think in 10 years Locke would lose a step.
I could imagine he'd probably prefer to do something by stealth.
Oh yeah,
Definitely. If it was me physically, if they wanted to film me doing it, I'm not sure I'd want to do too much running around. But we don't know, do we?
No, sadly we do not.
We're all a mystery.
We're all crossing our fingers, hoping for some Locke news. He is probably the character that we're most excited to hear some
Well,
news about.
that's nice to hear. You know,
We've
gives
grown
me warm
very
fuzzies.
attached.
It gives me fuzzies.
Yeah, yeah. It's great having you here because we all grown very attached to Locke ever since like the first interview and everything, and it's been quite a ride. Needless
Yeah,
to say.
oh, and for me too. And you know, Payday 2 still exists. Payday 2 is still,
It
you
does.
know, so because you know there was a moment where I was saying, well, you know, am I, aren't I, will I, won't I, you know, who knows? So do I continue to invest time into Locke's relationship with the Payday 2 community? And I think that's actually I need to do that. You know, for if Locke never came back, that would be a grieving process. If he were to come back, then that's a continuation process. Either way, I think that my time as an actor with having a relationship with the character Locke and the Payday 2 community, anyway, is not run. It's not over.
We as a community got Pete Gold back, as you know, like the voice actor for.
Oh, you know,
So
take
worst case scenario, we can always annoy
Locke
Starbreeze.
you didn't hear it from me.
We can always try our best to annoy Starbreeze until.
Let me say something else as well, though. That every character has a shelf life. You know, well, you know, James Bond, perhaps. You know, think characters like that where they bring in new actors. They, you know, Doctor Who, where they've created an environment where new actors can take over a role. But it seems to me that with Payday, Starbreeze has, you know, they've moved the story forwards, and the gang is older, and you know, Payday 4, Payday 5, eventually the guys are going to be too old, and they'll have to move on. So things will change, and one day, I don't know when or if or whatever that'll be, but one day Locke will be done.
Let's hope that Payday 5 or 6 or the infamous Locke pre sequels. No?
Yeah, yeah,
Sequels, yeah, sorry.
yeah, we could hark back to some other old heists that were never played. But what I've always said, what I have always said is to as far as Locke is concerned, you know, Payday is Starbreeze's franchise. If they want Locke involved, I'm happy to pick up the reins if they want me. If they've decided that that's it and they're moving on, that's also fine. You know, they've 8 years they've stuck by me, and you know, I can't be upset about that. I know there are other where actors have taken to the internet to cry publicly about the fact that they've been sacked from a role, but I'm not that person. I wouldn't do that. I would remain grateful.
Did that feel tempting at all for you at any point? Like, did you ever have a character that you just kind of lost and it felt like a part of you was going away?
No, but I could say that you know, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whenever it happens, it'll be hard with Locke. But as and when and if it happens, that'll be hard.
Yeah, it's almost like a little altered clone of you in a way when you craft the
Yeah,
character in your head.
I have 2 girls, and they both do a bit of voiceover, but I don't think I could try. Maybe they could be. Well, Joy was Locke's protege. I suppose Locke lives on through Joy a little bit.
That is true.
I'm
Let's see.
actually wondering.
I just there's that little silence, and I can see the wheel. Almost see the wheels turning.
Cloud here has most of the questions, and I'm a little going off the rails. I hope you don't
That's
mind.
okay. Nothing.
And and I would like to ask if how's the direction for like Locke as a story? Do you get the direction itself, or do you help add it to it? Because I know some actors actually get to shape the story somehow, but
No, no. So, I think with Locke again, because so much of what he does is procedural.
Mhm.
There's not really much input, but I think that I'm about to get catted. There's the cat who probably wants feeding. Um, I think what happens more is that the writers, having worked over the years with me, we learn about each other's personalities, and I think that they have input some of my personality into Locke because they know that those lines will work well.
Yeah.
I think it's the other way around. Rather than me saying to them, I think Locke should do this, I think that working together, if we did this, that would work because Ian is this type of actor. So, like, that's the cat. So there's, I'm trying to remember which heist it is. There's maybe Midland Ranch, one of the ones in Texas, where Locke gets onto the tannoy and impersonates one of the guards.
Oh yeah, with the
Accent.
really bad Texan accent. That's
Yeah.
great.
So I can remember the writer coming to me and says, "I've given you something to do." He said, "No, I'm British, playing a South African, impersonating a Texan. Have a go at that. See how that." And there was another one some other time we did. I can't remember that. That was more recently, but there was another one where we did something similar, where Locke was trying to impersonate the guard. So as an actor, and they've given that to me because they know that I like playing with voices. You know, I've been hired in close to 30 accents, different accents, over the years. A lot of British regional accents and a couple of Americans and South African and such like, and that's known. So they're like, well, Ian can do a Texan, a sort of a Southern American accent, and he does Locke, and he's British. Let's see if he can mash them together. And they always set it they put it in the script as a challenge. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't have to do that.
Just
There'd
trying
be
to.
another way of moving the story along. They wouldn't
Yeah.
have to do that. So they've written that in as all right, Ian, have a go at that.
That's always.
So that's an
great.
example of the collaborative nature of working with Starbreeze. It's been a lot of fun.
Because you have such great lines, like getting so scared that your mustache falls off and things like that. It's so funny to hear.
Yeah, I didn't invent those lines. Someone else wrote those lines. So,
Yeah.
but I do think that. So again, we go back. We swap from the Alaskan heist from becoming more
Mhm.
more aligned with the gang, and it has allowed Locke's personality to come through and to tell jokes. There was the whole thing about badgers. I don't think anybody quite knew where that came from. And so you've got to give credit to the people creating the stories and writing the lines for deciding that jokes are okay, and that Locke can tell them, and that's fun.
Let's see how we're doing on time here.
If it was for me, I could have you here all day asking you silly questions.
Well, I mean, does like, are there any of the people who are watching? If they want to put a question in the chat on Twitch, I'll try and answer any other questions that people have. For we can do another 15 or 20 minutes if you want.
Yeah, sure. Anyone got any burning questions?
So here's what we should do. People should ask a question, and they should have to donate to the charity in order to have their question asked. How about that? Yeah.
$5,000 a question? Does that sound good?
Oh dear.
Oh, I wanted to ask you. I think one of the last few times you were thinking about setting up a cameo type of situation, or even like something where people could reach you to do voices
Yeah,
and Locke and things like that.
I have been invited to Cameo. I have the invite in my inbox. I just haven't done it. So when it happens, I'll put something up on Payday. I'm sure. There's so much. I'll tell you the last. I'll just give you a little glimpse into my life. For about the last month to 6 weeks, I've approached each week going, great, I've got some quiet time where I can do some planning and just, if you like, put my head above the parapet just to see, what's going to happen next. And every week over the last 6 weeks, something has, I've been booking work like crazy. I mean, not video game work, but I just haven't stopped. And in fact, I mean, I'm not here. Well, I kind of am here. I'm here for work, but I came here to the UK for a week with one specific thing to do, which is Wednesday. And I decided I would come and visit my family, and my mum's in the hospital and she's elderly, so I've been visiting her every day. But in the flight over between getting from the US to here, when I opened up my inbox, I had 3 more bookings, which I had to deal with. So I've had to book time at local studios to go and do that work, and it just keeps coming. And so things like little asides, like the cameo thing, which are nice to dos rather than needs to dos, they've just been buried. Sorry.
I mean, it's just great that you're staying consistent with the voice work, because I mean, there's a lot of voice actors out there that it's like really volatile, whether they have work this week or next week, or so it's. I mean, it's a blessing.
It is. We are self-employed business people. Again, I don't talk about it a lot, like in this kind of environment, but in the voiceover industry environment, when I go and speak at conferences like the Get Your Game On conference, most of the time what I'm speaking about is the business end of what we do, how to find work, how to market yourself, because I have a 27-year in sales and marketing before I became a voice actor. So I'm pretty attuned to that sort of thing, and I want to speak negatively about the acting community, which is not fair. But we are all self-employed, and if we don't get up in the morning and put in the hard yards, it's not surprising that we're not busy. I get up and I do the hard yards. Guess what? I'm busy.
Yeah, it paid off.
I don't think I'm the most talented actor. I'm sure there are people who are more talented than me, but I don't think there are many that work harder than me. Yes, hello, cat.
But yeah,
the cat is called Esme.
Esme?
Esme.
Yeah. After Pratchett's witch from Discworld.
But yeah, Cloud here, or his real name is Austin, is being a little shy, but he's also a voice actor with a couple of roles in some video games. And what advices could you give him?
I auditioned for, I'd be most upset about that.
What advices could you give him?
train, work hard. People say, "What's your secret?" And that's it. Be prepared to be the person that does what other people are not prepared to do.
That's actually really good advice.
There is no real secret. The work is out there. That there are mountains and mountains and mountains of work out there. Well, a lot of it not well paid. There are a lot of people who don't recognize the investment needed to be a voice actor, who want to cast a voice actor but don't want to have the financial reality of what it costs to put that voice in whatever it is that they're making. So there's a lot of people out there who will want to pay you not very much, and I think you have to be sometimes prepared to draw a pretty hard line in the sand and say, I am worth more than that. But it's only 30 seconds. See, so talk about commercial voiceover. The script might only be 50 words, and it might only be 30 seconds long. But the value of that is in the size of the audience that sees it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, if you think about it in American terms, ad space, if you want to play a television commercial in the middle of the Super Bowl when 250 million people are watching, that costs more than wanting to put an advert out at 2 o'clock in the morning on some no-name streaming channel. The value to the company making that commercial is greater because it's being seen by a larger audience, and so the value of the people making the video, the people acting, the people writing, the people filming increases in line with that, and that's true of voice acting too. The larger the audience, the more value it has to the end client. It's not necessarily the length of the script that determines the value, and I think a lot of people struggle with that concept.
It's the scope more so.
Yeah. Video games tend to pay based on studio time rather than audience size. Although 2016, the US union SAG went on strike against that, and they did get some concessions. That if a game sells a certain number of units, then the actors should be paid a little bonus. It's not a lot of money, but it's something. And there was another strike vote on Friday, which I haven't seen the result of as yet. I've been not really looking, but so the union in the US, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, may well be striking against the video game companies again. I just haven't looked. I don't know. But that's a lot of that is about paying conditions. The big topic in the creative industries is the use of AI right now, and that's, I don't really want to beat the drum about that too strongly, but people need to respect the value that an actor brings, or a writer brings, or an artist brings to a project, and stealing that is wrong.
I agree 100%.
Just wrong. Now, if you make an AI clone of my voice and then you pay me when you use it, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you steal my voice and use it without paying me, that's not so good.
Yeah, I mean, you can go online and find any character's voice, and it's just like you can tell they definitely did not get consent for that.
Well, and the big guns are starting to train their sights on the AI industry. John Grisham and George R. Martin have both sued ChatGPT for copyright infringement.
Wow.
Stephen Fry, he was at an AI conference in London. He fell off the stage and hurt himself, went to hospital. But as a part of that conference, he said someone took the data from his narration of the Harry Potter books and created something else without his knowledge and without paying him. So, when people like me go, "Oi, you can't do that," it doesn't get much airtime. When people like Stephen Fry and George R.R. Martin stick their hand up and say, "You can't do that," and they've got the money and the resources to change the way it's treated, that's a good thing. So well done them.
Yeah, the future of that is honestly kind of scary. Don't know if we'll see any resolve with it, but I hope everything works out or some legal bounds are made for it.
Yeah, it is happening. The British government, the European Union, the US government, they're all working on it. You'll see if you read the news, there's something every week. It's happening. So the AI, the criminal fraternity, that's like it's wrong to steal something. But maybe not the greatest analogy since we're talking about Payday, but there's a different universe. In the real world, going into a bank and taking the money at gunpoint is not a good thing, and you go to prison when you get caught. But there are still people who do it.
Mm-hmm.
But because they do it, doesn't make it right. And in the real world, if you steal something digitally, like a voice or a picture or a sound, and when that becomes illegal, the good guys will come and get you, and you'll go to prison. So don't do it.
Yeah, the best advice to give.
From me first, don't do the bad thing. They're coming to get you. They really are.
Yeah, the last thing we need is Locke's voice being stolen. That's not what we want.
Well, I mean, in one sense, because he's almost a real unique kind of construction. If someone did that, we'd know, wouldn't we? They'd say, someone would pick up the phone and say, "Is that you, Ian?" And we're like, "No." "Okay, we'll arrest him." Would be pretty easy. So, but
So
anyway,
we're gonna close pretty soon. But do you have any lasting remarks or questions for us or anything?
keep fighting the good fight. The Payday game, the Payday franchise, has been such a great thing for so many people, and honor Starbreeze for that. For fight, you think about the problems they fought through. As a lot of studios would have collapsed, given the circumstances that they faced. 5 years ago. They've done really, really well, even to get this far. And
Yeah, they've been through hell and high water.
yeah, credit where credit is due. A lot of lesser studios would have collapsed with that. You hear about it all the time, studios closing and laying off all their people. And Starbreeze have managed to find a way through that. They've built Payday 3. They've launched it. I know there have been some server issues, but that's because it's so popular. It's like trying to buy tickets for the Olympics. There's so many people who want to buy the ticket, who want to play the game, and the servers struggle to cope. Don't get too angry with Starbreeze for trying to do the right thing, trying to get it working. Let's support them. Come follow me on @LockePayday. I'm still here. Buy other games that I'm in, that I tell other people that all the Starbreeze. I'm going to tell all my followers I'm in this game, because some of them might buy the game. Buy all the games that I'm in. They're all really good. Oh, can I give a quick shout out? Yes, I do want to do this, and it's nothing to do with Payday. So, about a year and a half ago, a guy cast me in a game called Burnhouse Lane, and I play an old guy who has dementia. And I based that character on my dad, who had Alzheimer's and died. And that performance, his name is George, that performance won Best Male Gaming performance 2023 at the One Voice Awards this year. If go by Burnhouse Lane, go listen to George, because there's a lot of my dad in that, and I'm very proud of that piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, it already has so much meaning behind it, and then it got an award. It's like, yeah, guys, go buy that game right now.
Yeah, and it's an indie game. It probably doesn't cost you very much, but Harvester Games, who make it, they tell stories. They tell stories that are hard to tell. The opening scene in Burnhouse Lane is the main character trying to commit suicide, and then learning and dealing with all of it. There are some difficult themes in that game, and I absolutely applaud them for, George has dementia, and we're dealing with that. It might be a hard watch. It might be a difficult play for some people, but it's great that, and this is where the indie game market has a real advantage. It can tell stories that the AAAs can't tell. So support indie games too. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of bravery to tell a story like that.
If you want a good laugh, go by the excavation of Hobbs Barrow and have the main character go and knock on Cyril's door and see what happens.
Well, there you go. If you want to be sad, play that game. If you want to be happy, play that other game. Pick your side.
Yeah, go knock on the door. If you want a good laugh, go knock on the door. And the voice you hear is me. So,
well,
anyway.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. We had a really good time talking to you, man.
Yeah, it's always fun. I enjoy doing this kind of thing. So anytime, if you're doing a charity stream and you want someone to come on, I'm always happy to do it.
Any closing remarks, Appo?
No, I'm still starstruck, to be honest.
Oh, please don't be that. I do not view myself as a celebrity at all.
Well, you mean a lot to us, dude.
Well,
That's all
that's
that
kind of
matters.
you to say so. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed playing Locke over the years. I don't know if his story is done. In the real world, on Twitter, X, his story is not done. I'll be there. I'll hang out on there still. I don't know if he's going to be in Payday 3 or not. He's missing. That's all I can say.
Well, we're hoping for the best with it.
If not, we got some annoying to do.
You may say that. I couldn't possibly comment. All right. Well, listen. Have a great rest of the stream. Given the time change, the other thing that I won't talk about it on live, but the other thing that we talked about, I don't think I'm going to be able to do.
Oh no, that's fine.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Which wasn't anything particularly exciting anyway, but I'm already exhausted from running around here, and I need to go to bed early.
Yeah, no worries.
No, you're completely fine. What you've given us is more than enough. Like the time that you've given.
And donate, viewers. Donate to the charity.
Yes, do that. Listen to him right now.
Do that thing now. $1 each. That's all I ask. $1. $1. Go put it in the bank right now. I promise not to steal it.
You heard Locke.
Donate you chops right now.
Donate you pops right now. Here was it.
There you go.
That on the rock. That one.
Thanks, Ian.
Your in-laws up. Listen, enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, whenever it is, wherever you are in the world. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
See you, Ian.
Take care.